Pale Matter presents Edge of the Forgotten. Edge of the Forgotten is a horror podcast series and may contain material not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Please see the episode description for content warnings and additional details. Episode 1: The Old Factory.
The building looms in the distance, though it's still much too close for Mae Belle's liking. It is both bigger and smaller than she had remembered, its crumbling bones slowly falling into itself over the years, and it's darker than it should be, here in the early evening light of summer. As if its cursed history has shrouded this building even with the sun still up for a couple more hours. Mae knows this better than any. For more than half a century, her husband Harold has been obsessed with this building and the event. It has weighed on his mind throughout the years, clouding his thoughts and darkening his heart. It was not uncommon for him to turn some completely random conversation to that day and how he should not be alive. After 50 years of that, Mae would occasionally agree, though of course never said that out loud. And at least that way, the explosion darkened her heart as well. The building had been known as Mortimer Steel and Chemical, starting originally as a steel factory in the early 1900s in Abilene, Kansas. In the 40s, due to the war effort, it had grown to include chemical manufacturing and storage, as well as fabrication for planes and other vehicles. By the 60s, when her husband worked there, some of the details had changed, but it had remained busy and a significant employer in the region. And then came the accident. The tallest part of the building, the warehouse storage for parts and chemical supplies, suffered a partial collapse after a catastrophic explosion in the chemical storage area, and the damage continued into other parts of the factory, taking out much of the roof of the millworks. In all, 49 people officially died, though a handful of others went missing and were presumed dead. Due to the nature of the accident, and with the risk of chemical poisoning and further collapse, extensive rescue efforts were planned, but then ultimately abandoned, before the company itself went bankrupt. That Harold survived when so many others did not was both a blessing and a curse. Months afterward, the two of them moved to the outskirts of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where factory jobs were easier to find. But moving away did not erase the memories, nor absolve him of any misplaced guilt. Over the years, his desire to return to Abilene and face this building became a frequent argument for them. He would suggest they go back, just to look around, or see their old house, or pay their respects to the cemetery that held many of the bodies. Mae, of course, wanted nothing to do with that accursed place, as she called it, and did whatever she could to quash such thoughts. Even during the road trip to New Mexico, when he swore it was right out of the way, and it'd only be a little time out of the trip, she was able to get him to listen and turn south on 44 at St. Louis, bypassing Kansas entirely. But the mind is a funny thing, a thing not so easily controlled. She could keep him from visiting, but she couldn't get him to stop thinking of the factory. He could remember every detail of that fateful day. The strange, acrid smell in the air before the floor shook and gave way not a dozen feet away. Or the look of shock frozen onto the face of his assistant foreman before he was buried in the collapsing rubble. But he couldn't remember what the factory had looked like after all these years, or how it was laid out within. He tried hunting those memories down, drawing the place hundreds of times, even building a replica out of balsa wood, but never quite getting it right. And that gnawing need to see it only furthered his obsession. The last couple of years, though, Alzheimer's had started stealing bits of memory from Harold's mind, and Mae, seeing the writing on the wall, finally relented. They could take a trip, probably their last road trip, and visit what remained of the old factory. She secretly hoped that seeing the place would slow the Alzheimer's, or at least fill the hole of his obsession, even as she dreaded the trip and the return. They arrived in town in the middle of the afternoon, and Harold, driving, went straight to the old place. "Shouldn't we check into a hotel first?" Mae asked. "Or maybe grab a bite to eat?" But Harold wouldn't listen, and since Mae had already relented, she did so again. The factory had always been on the outskirts of town, but since the event, it was clear the town moved further away from it. The only road to the place proved hard to find, hidden among the overgrown hedge trees, and once found, what little pavement remained barely provided a surface to drive across. Eventually, though, they found their way, and wound up in an overgrown area that was once a gravel parking lot. Harold took no time at all to gather up his old camera. He desperately wanted photos, and got out of the car. He nodded at everything Mae had to say. "Be careful, don't go too far in, come back in an hour, stay in touch." Mae could barely stand to watch him walk toward the ruins. Harold was an old man, approaching 88. He didn't move quickly, and with a hunched hitch to his step. Here, though, he moved faster than she had seen in years, and somehow stood straighter. It saddened her. She tried to feel happy for him. Maybe he would finally be able to let go, or at least have some photos to remind him of the time before. But she couldn't find any happiness in this day. She hated this place, and the deep scars it had left. And so she stopped watching his funny little gait and turned to her book. Time drifts away, as does the sun. Tick, tick, tick. The sound of the second hand on her watch. The words on the page have lost all meaning several pages earlier. She looks up, sees the lengthening shadows, and the deeper darkness of the factory. How long has he been gone, she wonders. Not how long has he been in there, but gone. Her left hand shakes at the realization. She tries to remember what time they arrived, but is unable. Not precisely, anyway. At least a couple of hours have passed. Maybe a few. Too long. She steadies her left hand with her right, and then pulls her phone from the center console. No messages. With a sigh, she fingers the door handle, and then pops it open. She tries not looking at the horrible building as she swivels her legs out, and then grabs the old flashlight from the glove box before exiting the vehicle. He's just lost in time, she tells herself, almost convincingly. Hesitant steps, shuffling through the tall grass and crunching through the hidden gravel. The sun almost completely hides behind the building now, sinking lower with each slow fall of her foot. "Harold?" she calls out, more timid than intended. Perhaps he's already out, getting one last look at the place, or simply relieving himself before getting back on the road. But there is no answer, nor any other sound. No evening crickets or the whine of cicadas. No rustling of the grass. No breeze either. As if this spot holds its breath. "Harold?" More loudly now. Maybe too loudly. She doesn't want what remains of the building to hear. She scoffs at this thought, but she still thinks it all the same. With each slow step, the ruins loom larger, and too quickly, as if meeting her halfway. She tries to slow even further, but her path is set. No matter how slow she walks, she will reach the building. Where is he? She tries not thinking of the worst. A floor caving in, a wall collapsing, a sudden heart attack from being too overwhelmed. Perhaps some swelling of emotions within him brought with it the full force of his Alzheimer's, and he now wanders around, forgetful, lost. Finding him, though, saving him, gives her focus, a power over this haunted place. Not haunted, not even cursed, just damaged, forgotten. She lies to herself in this way as she nears the outside wall. A large opening stands in front of her. a scar of darkness ripped through the outer wall. Beyond it, she can just make out shapes. Walls, rubble, the partially collapsed and tilted second floor. Now, at the mouth of the beast, she calls out once more, "Harold?" And then stronger, desperate for Harold to hear, to return to her, so she doesn't have to cross this final threshold. Still, no sound, no sense of movement. She fumbles with her flashlight, and it doesn't flicker to life at first, but remembers Harold telling her that it's old, and the bottom just requires a solid tap to jostle the batteries. She tries this against the outer wall, and her face is suddenly bathed in the bright yellow light, blinding her for a moment. It's a strong light but broad, and doesn't extend a great distance. Still, it's enough to reveal what's beyond the scar of darkness, giving her enough to pick her steps, to find a safe route forward, and she does just that. She enters the ruins of the old factory. The last rays of the sun shine upward through the distant holes in the back of the wall, giving more hints to what's above than what's here on the main floor. The ragged remains of a second floor and the hints of parts of the third. A roof that's more missing than here. The skeletal remains of metal beams and jagged rebar. Mae has been here before. A lifetime ago. She didn't visit often when Harold worked here. The place had smelled of chemicals, old motor oil, and sweat. But she knew the place well enough back then. Nothing looks familiar now, though. She has no bearing, no hints of a direction, no sense of where Harold might have gone. And what if he is truly gone? Where will your bearings be then? She shakes the thought from her mind, but she feels it clinging at the edge. She sets her thoughts to the task at hand, focusing on each tentative step, picking her way through the rubble as carefully as possible. There at her feet, realization blooms. The floor, thick with dust, reveals fresh tracks. She bends down, getting the glow of her flashlight closer. The footprints are smeary, shuffled, but suggest a path. A faint breeze tickles the back of her neck, as if a breath from someone standing over her. She jumps, jerks the light from side to side, her heart thumping in her throat. Goose flesh ripples across her body. The swinging of the light throws moving shadows all around. But no one's there. She steadies herself, her right hand gripping a large chunk of concrete. As if to prove she's not terrified, she yells, "Harold!" The shaking of her voice belies her effort. Still no sounds return in answer. Not even a faint echo. Everything is dead here. A memory flashes in her mind. A newspaper article from a week after the explosion. A special edition with all of the obituaries within. She can still feel the rough newsprint in her hands. 49 people dead and several more unaccounted for. It was assumed the ruins would be cleared and the last of the remains found and buried, but neither happened. Everything is dead here. A forgotten mass grave. Mae resumes her careful steps, now just a bit more quickly. Every inch of her screams to get out, get away. But the footsteps are clear, and she's determined to find her husband. With each swing of her light, a distant shifting shadow becomes an imagined figure. A ghost watching her pick her way through the rotting bones, or a ghoul waiting to pounce. Nothing's here, she whispers to herself. Except Harold, she adds moments later. She tries to only watch the path ahead, the shuffling prints through the dust. But it's hard not to glance up, to look for these moving shapes, these watching shadows. With a quick glance behind her, she can see the opening where she came through. It's further than she thought, and becoming darker outside as well. What if I have to run? Can I get past the shadows? She tries remembering in which part of the building she now stands, and can't quite picture it. She's near the central area, where the warehouse floors rose up and came down. But here should be closer to the manufacturing floor where Harold used to work. Nothing's here, she whispers again. She turns back to the path, and realizes now how right she is. Several feet ahead, the footprints disappear into a maze of disturbed dust. It's not clear which direction he may have gone. Beyond that spot, a massive hole swallows a large area of the floor, as if he had neared the hole, looked for a way down, and then wandered off in a random direction. She raises the light into the air, projecting shadows that dance away from the beam in odd directions. Above her are girders and the remains of a walkway, as well as some chains and pulley systems, and then darkness beyond. "Mae?" Harold says from a distance, sounding lost and confused. She lowers the light, sweeping it across the far side of the hole, searching for him. There he stands, looking old and frail as she'd ever seen him, alone in the darkness. But there's more to it than that. He looks lost, as if he doesn't have a clue as to where he is or why he'd be there. She's about to admonish him for getting lost and for apparently losing his light and everything else she's been worrying about. But just as she's about to open her mouth, a strange vibration settles into her jaw, her throat, the base of her skull. "I think there's something here," he says quietly. Is that fear in his voice? She tries to speak again, but a bright light flashes from where he stands, once, twice, 3 times, the flash from his camera. In those briefest moments, she watches as a shadow dances near him, toward him, and around him, its form shifting in each flash. In that final, horrible moment, the shadow takes the shape of a man in silhouette. A scream of surprise erupts from her, vibrato from the strange sensation still roiling in her jaw. He drops his camera first as it slips from his hand, bounces off the floor, and tumbles over the edge of the hole into the waiting darkness below. She doesn't pay attention to any of that. Her eyes are locked on Harold, and she watches as he too begins to fall. Now in slow motion, her husband tilts forward, flailing into the shadow form, and disappears. As if the shadow was a hole, a tear in reality. There is no impact, no thud, no body. Just a hole in the air where Harold previously stood. Out of instinct or incredulity, she glances into the hole. There is no Harold, of course, just rubble and the remains of the walkway. The vibration in her head grows, slipping into her sight and doubling everything she sees. She looks back, but the shadow is gone. Or perhaps it's everywhere. She frantically swings the beam of the light in a wide arc, and the shadows jump in all directions as if running from the light. But it's close. She feels this deeply. Run, she tells herself, but her feet have stopped working. There are no sounds, no sense of motion, nothing but her light, and the vibration that threatens to shake her teeth out. She holds fast, frozen in place, unblinking, with the flashlight gripped so tight that her forearm hurts. Even her breath is held, causing her chest to burn. She feels none of this. The shadow moves. It's subtle at first, between the double vision and the nearly motionless shadows from her light, but it shifts like the silhouette of a man stepping forward, and it's much too close. Mae screams. She almost drops her flashlight as she turns, slipping and scrambling to stay on her feet. The path no longer matters. Only that scar of twilight in the distance that promises a way out of this cursed place. Running as quickly as she can, she tries to dodge the rubble and clutter that seemingly jumps in her way. Jagged concrete scrapes her arm. A low rod of rebar gashes into her leg, almost bringing her down. All she thinks is run and out. She keeps her eyes focused on the opening and the deepening blue of the outside beyond. It's impossibly far, as if the hole in the wall recedes the closer she gets. She slips, claws, dragging herself forward with every bit of energy she has left. And then she's there, crossing that space between the ruins and the outside. As she bursts through, something touches her arm, almost gently. A wisp, a caress. Reflexively, she turns. The figure of darkness stands there, filling the hole she just moved through. Though only blackness remains, she knows it's there, can feel its shape. And she knows it's no ghost, nor anything she has ever seen or imagined before. It's a scar in the fabric of existence, much like the hole in the wall. This is the thing that took Harold, and it could have easily taken her as well. It still could. But it won't. And somehow she knows this. That brief touch was not caring, but rather a threat. With that thought, the vibrations suddenly stop, and everything clears. The shadow thing shifts, flowing into a swirling, smoky mass. Words drift over her, though she doesn't know if she hears this or if they form in her mind. You are nothing. A gnat. A virus. I am the end of all things. I am the undoing. We shall meet again one day. And then it's gone. No longer here before her, and no longer in her mind. From here, it's all a fog. She doesn't remember getting into her car or somehow finding the city. She knows she calls the police, that much is sure. But what she tells them when they finally arrive is a mess of conflicting details. She mentions Harold and his obsession, him getting lost, or maybe she was lost. The shadows and Harold's fall and his disappearance, all of it again and again. There are hours of waiting. A policewoman sits with her in the parking lot of the motel, while another cruiser goes to look. There's occasional chatter on the radio, additional or repeated questions. What's your name? What's your husband's name? Date of birth? Why were you there? Paramedics arrive at some point, patching up her leg and trying to take her to the hospital. She refuses. This part is clear in her memory, though she doesn't remember when they ultimately leave. Eventually, the second police car returns, and the policewoman steps over to talk to them privately. Mae's hands have stopped shaking. Her breathing returned to normal hours ago, though now it feels thin, empty, as if there's never really enough air. Her mind is a blur, as if none of today could have happened. Finally, she sees the woman officer approaching, a look of sadness, pity on her face. Mae tries to focus, to ready herself for what must be the bad news. The only thing logical in this crazy night. Harold is dead. But even before the woman speaks, Mae knows this is not what she's going to say. At least, not in this way. The woman speaks in a careful, caring way. Ma'am, I don't know how to say this, but your husband passed away, she says before adding, in 1967. He was among the 50 workers who died in the explosion that day. There's no one there at the old factory. There are more words and questions, but all Mae can do is work through the numbers. Not 49, but 50 dead, as if Harold never survived. They never moved away, they never lived a good life for over 50 years after. The woman officer brings up Alzheimer's, something Mae mentioned in regard to Harold, but the woman is clearly looking at Mae with those eyes. Mae is the one lost, those eyes say. Eventually, the officer leaves when no additional information will come. Mae has stopped responding to further questions. There are no answers to provide when everything has been turned so inside out. Mae has no words left, but two words keep repeating in her mind. Lost. Forgotten. Along with it, an image. A hole in existence shaped like a man. A man who somehow took her husband. I am the undoing, this shadow says. We shall meet again one day. She will not forget this.
Edge of the Forgotten is a Pale Matter podcast distributed by the Realm Podcast Network. Our theme music was created by composer Jimmy Svensson and is available for purchase. See the episode description for more details. If you like what you've heard today, we encourage you to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your preferred podcast app, and please share this show. This helps us grow our audience, which in turn helps us produce more episodes. For more detailed information about Edge of the Forgotten, credits for this particular episode, or the production team behind this series, please visit our website at www.palematter.com or see the episode description to find out how to listen to our shows, follow us on social media, or connect with us on Discord. For a deeper dive into Edge of the Forgotten, check out our Patreon, where we offer insights and supporting information, physical and digital props, bonus episodes and recordings, and other assets that expand the story in a variety of ways. Thank you for listening.